This piece is written for Talea Ensemble. It's from a foundation commission, and it is called Still Life. And it is scored for an 8-person ensemble, fixed media and video. And the ensemble's a bit quirky. It's flute doubling bass flute and piccolo, clarinet doubling bass clarinet, bassoon doubling contrabassoon, a detuned harp, piano, and percussion, viola, cello, double bass. So kind of a lower sound world, lower atmosphere. The fixed media is based on or plays with field recordings that um, I've made from all around my sort of our sort of like burgeoning homestead in rural Connecticut. Ted is doing the sound and video design for the project. I don't know if you want to say anything about the video, Ted.
Sure. So yeah, as Katie said, the um, electronic sound part is a lot of field recordings from around rural Connecticut, and then also the video uses a bunch of source video that was recorded around rural Connecticut of leaves and rocks and paths and bees and all sorts of uh, different nature elements that will appear in the video, but
And
also and the
chickens,
chickens,
Ted.
yes, and
Because you
chickens.
have chickens at home, I heard.
Yeah, in
Yes,
fact, the
the
chickens you will
chickens
see
are
are,
duck. The
are
chickens are
our
a
chickens.
major feature.
They are.
So, yeah.
So they are your chickens that are featured.
They are our chickens. Unfortunately, many of those chickens no longer exist because it was a flock of meat birds that I raised for
They've been
consumption
eaten
over the summer. They've been
Okay.
eaten.
Well, we
by
will we will
by
remember
humans.
the chickens fondly then.
We will
Yeah,
remember them. Yeah, this piece is
they do.
actually dedicated to the Cornish hens. So,
Nice. Can
um,
you tell me a little bit more about the use of the recordings? Like, how are you actually integrating them in the within the musical texture and with the instrumental material that you're using?
yeah, so the piece like structurally sort of loosely follows the cycle of you know, dawn till dusk. And um, so the first time like these field recordings are encountered is a very slow accumulation of um, a sort of early morning field recording I made. I spent a long time over the summer trying to figure out the exact moment when the morning chorus of birds started. And it starts way before sunrise. It kept getting earlier and earlier, my wake up time. So I ended up using this recording that um, starts around 3 a.m. and is mostly just insects. And then, sort of at the very end of this recording, there starts to be hints of birds. So that recording sort of seeps into a texture that situates it in sort of a harmonic sound world. Um,
So by that, do you mean that you're actually taking sort of spectral information from the recordings and those become pitch material? Is that that type of interaction?
it it's actually just very simple. It's the field recordings go through various phases of pitch shifting that sort of match the harmony of the ensemble.
I see.
So I sort of transcribed by ear the approximate sort of harmonic language of the field recording, and then for certain reasons having to do with the way the harp is detuned, sort of pitch shifting around those centers. The synthesized sounds come from Ted's process of like editing and sort of regenerating synthetically certain parts of the sound that would be otherwise like difficult to extract from just like denoise and normalization.
So one thing that we're doing is we're taking some of these field recordings and doing a spectral analysis of them so that we can take that data and then resynthesize the recordings using just playing back of sine tones, many, many, many sine tones. And once we're have the data in a way that we can play back the sine tones, we can then manipulate those sine tones. And so have them be morphing or slowing down or speeding up or detuning in various ways to transform the what sounds like a field recording and hearing the birds and hearing the sounds from that, and then morph it into something that is more abstract and sort of blend it with the ensemble in that way.
Just as a little nerdy question here for those who might be tech inclined, are you using something like Spear to do this or custom software?
So I'm using Spear to do the analysis, and then Spear lets you export that data as a text file.
Hmm.
And then I'm using custom software um, that takes that data and plays it back as sine tones. And that software is written in SuperCollider and also another new coding framework called Maudio.
Okay, great. Um, and so just to understand, are we going to hear the field recordings, uh, straight ahead, like as purely as they are, or will they always be sort of transform sounding?
There are just a few times where you hear the field recordings straight ahead as they are. The first is sort of about halfway through this morning chorus build up, where the field recordings are actually introduced, transposed at a lower pitch level, and slowly, gradually are retuned to their original frequency. Um, but by that point, I'm not sure you'd be able to sort of perceive what is an unaltered sort of field recording by that point. The only other place I think is this right, Ted, that they appear completely raw, or I mean, just a little bit of EQ, and is in the third movement, which is called the Dance of the Young Girls, um, which uh, plays with field recordings of the chickens. They make a lot of different sort of squawking and cooing and growling sort of sounds. So there's a bit of a we're calling it the cluck interlude.
How many movements then to the piece?
So the piece is in four movements with interludes. So there are two buzz interludes. The buzz interludes are made from, like, I had made these field recordings. I was trying to get really close field recordings of the bumblebees in our anise hyssop crop. Um, but it was very hard to get recordings that weren't super quiet. So I gave those field recordings sort of edited and chopped up into samples to Ted, who then sort of reproduced them synthetically. And so that we're able to have this kind of magnified um, buzzing sound. So those buzz etudes happen twice in the piece. Ted, I don't know if you want to talk about those.
Sure, it's another example of the idea of taking like the sounds that we're hearing in nature where we're doing these field recordings and then like transforming them into something more abstract. In this case, I couldn't start with the bee sounds themselves because as Katie said, the recordings were difficult to work with. So I synthesized the sound of a bee and the piece has four speakers, so it'll be spatial audio and we'll hear bees, moving around us. But
Hmm.
then the bee sounds that are synthesized transform into harmonies and swells that become a sort of more capital M musical phrase.
And there, the ensemble can start to pick up and join in from those harmonies. And then it becomes the ensemble itself that actually tries to map itself onto the field recordings in sort of particular ways. So a lot of the piece in general is about, I think, an experience like as artists we're all familiar with of like getting inspired by a thing, a sort of material thing in the world. In this case, for Ted and I, our surrounding environment, and then the process of art making is sort of like abstracting that thing, internalizing and abstracting it into a sort of experience that can be shared with other people.
Hmm.
So the
Yeah,
piece
go
is
ahead.
sort of about that in a way.
Nice. Can you tell me a little bit about the detuned harp? I'm curious about how did you come up with the detuning, and is it related to the to the field recordings potentially?
Yeah, so the harp, it's the all the F and B strings are detuned to quarter tone, which is nice because with harp pedaling, it allows you to get an E, sort of an E quarter tone flat, an F quarter tone flat, and a G three quarter tones flat. And then with the B tuning, you can have a C quarter tone flat, a B quarter tone flat, and a B three quarter tones flat. This was to match. This was to match the sort of by ear harmonization I was doing of that early morning chorus field recording that I mean, I made sort of many of them, but the one I ended up sort of using for the piece, um, you know, in the kind of like acoustic niche of like insects and rustling and, the sort of omnipresent layer of noise in that atmosphere. It was pretty hard to transcribe the like exact harmonic cluster.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, the detuned harp gives me this kind of anchor point that allows me to situate the piece microtonally around these two sort of key centers, F and B, that microtonally sort of drift up and down. So that choice like really helped me sort of establish the harmonic underpinning of the piece and how I could sort of easily float between these microtonal deviations.
Hmm. So, are we, should we expect a piece that's going to be what I would call it contemplative in some ways, or is it going to be something that has more, uh, I don't know, dramatic is the right word, but it's sort of narrative in some way?
I think it's pretty narrative, Ted. I don't know. What do you think?
It feels like an abstract narrative. I mean, there's definitely m moments that have different characters. There's some parts that are funny and some parts that are t contemplative and some parts that are, you know, I don't know, surprising and exciting. I mean, it's like, yeah, it kind of goes all over the place.
We do call the third movement a scherzo. Um, if that gives some idea of
Sure.
the sort of atmosphere of the piece. I think each movement has a different sort of temporal flow. Uh, I think like my music, I am really bad at writing like which is very annoying. I'm really bad at writing slow music for a long time. I get very like agitato and like want to keep things moving. So I think I sort of started the piece in a contemplative way, and then it's you can sort of even hear in like my own compositional process, my sort of own drive to like, okay, bring the momentum forward, keep it pushing. I think the last movement, which is also the longest, is at sort of a more contemplative space, and sort of also is the kind of synthesis of this idea of abstracting these kinds of raw field recordings and video um, materials. I don't know if you want to talk about the video for that at all, Ted.
Sure. So the video for that last movement was actually one of the first kind of media pieces we um, generated and liked and helped guide the composition of the rest of the piece, like thinking about this as being the ending. And what happens is some video frames from different videos are abstracted into these like polygon shapes that you can make out what the source was from the video, but it's sort of really stylized, abstract image. And then these polygons sort of morph between different images, kind of becoming bees and flowers, or becoming different insects or leaves or different things that we had seen earlier in the work in different video elements. And they morph and move really slowly, and they move across all three video screens. So it's really this slow reveal of these different abstracted images. And then the music Katie composed for that also, sort of has this very contemplative space and moves between these different sections and this repeated patterns that give us a nice like sonic support to that. So,
Hmm.
Katie, you want
So,
to
I
say anything?
also just remembered there is one other raw field recording which is in that movement, which is the sounds of frogs croaking at night that we have. Yeah. But there's also synthesized sound there as well. That's are the sine tones there derived from the birds or no, Ted?
The sine tones in the last movement are derived from the birds, but you would never be able to tell
Yeah.
because at that point, the process of stretching out those recordings is so transformed that one wouldn't know. But going into the last movement, we
Yeah.
do hear that process unfold where we hear the birds, and then we hear the process of them slowly being stretched out and retuned until we get these beautiful sustaining harmonies, and then those harmonies sort of bring us through the rest of the piece.
I just wanted to touch on the three video screens that you briefly mentioned there, what I presume that it's you want to give you want to sort of I mean, you mentioned to me just before the interview that you want to give the sense that you are sort of wrapping the ensemble in the image. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Uh, for me, the original sort of, the piece has evolved a lot as we've been making it and thinking about it. The original sort of conceit I had of the piece was really like about dirt and about the ground because something I spend a lot of time with when I'm not making music is with soil and with dirt and thinking about um, how this material is so essential for everything I do in terms of growing food, in terms of taking care of the poultry, in terms of using the poultry to make compost. So I really wanted to write a piece that felt very like grounded in the dirt, in the grass, which is also has to do with the ensemble choice of these sort of lower instruments to sort of emphasize that groundedness. So the original sort of conceit of the piece was the idea of the ensemble as these kinds of bugs or sort of small things enveloped in this sort of video space that was the sort of ground up for them.
Hmm.
Um, I think, the sort of concept and form of the piece evolved, but still like what remains is the sense of like you are uh as a musician, the musicians are sort of immersed in this environment. They're part of this acoustic ecology.
Hmm. So that's great. I'm maybe as a last question, I'm curious to see how or to hear how because you've been living in this new house now for just under a year, right? Is that correct?
A couple
A
years.
couple of
And
years now.
2.5 years, I think.
Okay, so it seems to have a very direct influence, of course, on this piece. How is this? Do you think this is like a new departure for you both artistically? That somehow the your this new sort of lifestyle is going to really permeate a lot of your future works, or do you think this is like you're just kind of trying this out and see what happens, or there's like a one shot type of exploration, or do you think this is a more fundamental, who knows?
I think who knows? I mean, I don't think anyone can ever predict the direction their art might take them in. I think for me, it felt like I had these two sort of separate worlds. I've been sort of learning about different agricultural things and sort of animal husbandry for a long time now. That's never been a part of my life, like that's entered into my music. And now I'm sort of situated in this lifestyle where I'm sort of able to start dipping my toes into doing those things myself. Um, so it just felt like, oh, maybe I should like try to like think of a piece that sort of fuses those things. But the degree to which this will like permeate, this will be like the thing.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm not so interested in answering that question. I think,
Mhm.
you know,
That's right.
life
What
takes
about you,
us in a
Ted?
lot of directions.
Mhm.
I'll echo what Katie said.
Mhm.
It's
Okay, well,
hard.
thank you so much for talking to us, or talking to me about the piece. We really look forward to playing the piece in a few weeks, and also I personally look forward to seeing you both in person. It's been such a long time, actually,
Yeah,
so it'll be great.
really nice. Thanks, David. Really
Okay, thank
looking
you so
forward to
much.
it.
Thanks, David.